Thanks, Dan, for the introduction. So my name is Samarth, and I'm presenting my work from Simon Fraser University with my colleagues here in the front few rows. So the work is called Designing for Reflection and Remembrance of Moments in the Home Using Everyday Artifacts. So I just want to start off with, like, many people like to capture and accumulate a massive number of photos and videos associated with their family members, their memorable activities, and shared experiences. And like most family members, we would capture, store, and even frame some of these moments in a house to reflect back onto these special or mundane moments in the home. Now, I just want to imagine a scenario, like think of a scenario where a couple arrives home and they see this lovely visual of the kid doing a shimmy dance for their arrival. Now, in order to capture and share this moment, a family member is always required to be equipped with a camera to shoot, but in reality, it's hard. Amongst the busyness of like domestic life and the routines of domestic life, it's hard to capture these moments or these like. So the message I want to give to my talk today is domestic video recording and playback technologies provide value to family members, but the design needs to respect the social norms around everyday objects, relationships, and privacy concerns across times and generations. Now, this desire to capture family moments motivated us to explore always-on video recording systems. Now, naturally, the idea of capturing family life at a continuous pace is radically somewhat new and presents a very different way of capturing family life than many people are used to and have grown to expect. There are many products in the market, but they're rather used for surveillance or safety products rather than for capturing family moments. Now, the topic of creation, exploration, and resurface of digital memories has been an active research topic over the years in the SIGCHI community. There have been work related with ubiquitous capture in the home and everyday life, works related with privacy issues and sense capture in the home, and looking at only special events or important experiences. And there has been less work on always-on video recording and replay that might impact domestic life by embedding such data into their everyday lives. Hence, our overarching goal for our research was to design an always-on video recording system and study its impact on family members' practices of reflecting and remembering their past. Thus, to better understand this design space, we designed and fabricated Time Turner. Now, the name Time Turner is inspired from the movie Harry Potter, where, as you can see, Hermione uses a device to travel and witness the past. So we designed the non-fiction version of Time Turner, which is an always-on video recording system in the home, accompanied by a set of 3 drink coasters that replace the video content which is captured from the camera. Now first, Time Turner records the video data of the home using one or more cameras that are meant to be always on and placed in one or more locations. So you could imagine a Kinect camera placed in one of the kitchen cabinets at the top, which is capturing the video and some metadata such as the location in the house, the number of people that are in the view, and also the activity level, which is basically a pixel-wise comparison of how much activity is going on in the room. Secondly, Time Turner consists of 3 drink coasters showing glowing lights and videos that are wirelessly operating and talking to each other. So we also selected coasters as a start because it's an everyday object that typically highly mobile. It travels from one room to the other and could be used by multiple family members or even shared by the guest. So talking about the coasters more, so the coaster at the top, which is the month coaster and the smallest coaster, presents the activity level for the entire month. So the layout of the LEDs resemble your calendars, which is a grid of 5 by 7. The coasters depict the activity level of month for each day. So we use a varying luminance level for each day to represent the activity level. Hence, a bright LED might indicate there was more activity on that particular day, while a dim LED might indicate there was relatively less activity. The current date on the coasters would always be blinking and would transition as per the current calendar date. Similarly, coaster 2 represents the data for the entire day, like a 24-hour clock, and provides the activity level for each hour of the day. And similarly, the current hour of the day would blink and transition as per the current time. Thirdly, coaster 3 contains the most detailed and the rich data in the form of videos from the always-on video capture. By default, the selected time and date on coasters 1 and 2 is exactly 1 year ago. So you could imagine if we had the coasters here, we could see what was happening on April 23rd, 2017, if the coasters were here. Now you must be wondering, why can we only go back 1 year? Why can't we scrub in between those dates? So in order to solve that problem, we added spatial sliding to coasters 1 and 2. So a user could magnetically change the point by attaching them magnetically and sliding them up and down to change the data points on the coasters. So sliding downwards means going forward in time, while sliding upward causes it to move backward in time. And as you slide, the blinking LED on both the coasters would change to indicate your selected date and time. And as soon as you detach these coasters, they would go back to their default state, that is exactly 1 year ago. Lastly, the coasters change what data is shown as the user moves them to different locations in the home, making them spatially aware of the home environment. So if you have multiple cameras in the home, they would show you the data for the nearest camera or different rooms. So coming to the study, so we conducted a study of time turner with the goal of exploring the design space of always-on video recording and playback within the home. So for our participants, we recruited a total of 18 participants from 9 different households using snowball sampling in Vancouver. Participants were in the age range of early 20s to early 50s. All households mostly contained 2 adults living as partners or married couples, with the exception of 1 family. 7 of these 9 families had children. So overall, our participant pool offered a very diverse set of families, young and old parents, with and without kids, and even single parents. So as a first step, and without knowing the consequences of placing such devices in the home for users for long term, we decided to be a bit cautious and use time turner as a part of co-speculative approach at this stage, with family members to explore and discuss a range of future scenarios and the uses in the home. By using scenarios, this also allowed the research participants to act as co-speculators that could play a more active role in co-designing such radically new emerging future technologies at this point. So we use scenarios, and hence to provide more contextual richness and allow participants to better relate to the idea of living with these devices, we developed 6 everyday scenarios of family members using and interacting with the technology. For this purpose, we even described an imaginary family to our participants to ground them in our scenarios. So each of these scenarios were enacted by producing a pre-recorded videos on Coaster 3 using an exemplar family mapping to our imaginary family. We also provided an entire narrative of the use to provide them what was the context of use and the interaction, what was happening with the coasters. So after showing them each scenario, we followed with a semi-structured interview to elicit family members' reaction to that particular scenario or even their existing similar incidents. This slide shows one of the many 6 scenarios. This is showing the category of like an embarrassing moment where you see a dad having like a cereal, partially naked on a Sunday morning. And we did the same for all the 6 scenarios. Lastly, after the 6 scenarios, we conducted a final group interview with all the family members to collect and gather their thoughts. Talking about data collection, the study sessions were audio and video recorded. Audio was fully transcribed and reviewed in conjunction with the videos to form high-level themes. Coming to our findings. So talking about reality over memory. So during the scenarios, we found participants relating to the scenarios to their own memories, unfolding on the system, providing them with a much richer description rather than relying on their mental abilities to recall their past. They valued seeing mundane yet salient aspects of these memories, such as family members in the background, or what was the color of the carpet, and such salient details. 4 participants even related to their uncaptured childhood achievements, which they might provide them with a sense of accomplishment at a later stage. One of the participants mentioned, I remember when I first time tied the shoelace, I was so proud, and I wanted everyone to know. It would have been dope to have a video of. But despite these positives, participants also talked about the negatives of having a somewhat exact replica of their life, taking away the ability to form stories or hide sensitive details in the future. The same participant, after going through a few scenarios, mentioned, I think as a recall, after I tied it the first time, the woman who was babysitting me untied it, and I cried. So I don't know how much I actually want to relive. Now, naturally, all participants had concern around capturing certain activities at home, such as parties or private conversations, and even obtaining consent from guest or visitor every time they visit the home. And as such, most households felt like private or public areas in the house were the ideal location for such devices, with the ability to turn on and off the capturing as desired. Talking about the technology as a domestic artifact and the interaction, participants really liked how easy it was to slide the coasters to see their past memories. They mentioned it was easy to share their memories with family members without posting it on social media and making it more public. But this ease of sliding turned into a negative aspect with the presence of non-family members. It was easy for outsiders to start touching and sliding the coasters to see the family memories, or even moving the coasters to a different area to expose what was the family doing at a particular time. Thirdly, participants talked about time turner revealing unpleasant memories leading to undesirable situations in the present. One of the most influential instances of this was handling conversations with young children about death evoked by seeing departed family members. So parents thought children under the age lack the notion of time, lack the correct notion of understanding time, and would randomly pick and choose time, being unaware of families' tragic incidents. They also mentioned young children tended to see death as temporary or reversible because they watch cartoon characters suddenly rising after being dead. One of the parents mentioned the kids would pick times after grandma was already dead, or they would pick times randomly, like it would be random if they found her. Fourthly, talking about most participants reflected on how they had changed over the years in terms of their self-identity, their roles, and their emerging relationship with other family members. They said it would be a really amazing experience to watch their own childhood days, especially growing up from a baby to a toddler. But yet they would prefer not to relive certain phases of their childhoods, especially their teenage years. One of the participants mentioned, "It's painful. My mom keeps photos of me when I was growing up, where I'm just like super awkward, string bean, huge glasses, bad haircut, giant head, and you don't necessarily want to relive that stuff." Participants also felt that memories with their grandparents became richer with the passage of time because this relationship and roles evolved and switched over time. For this reason, they also felt like designs like Time Turner could be more valuable for children as they grow up and could reflect back on their relationship with different family members. Talking about passing down the system, participants expressed deep concern with the current behaviors that could be easily considered inappropriate in the future if attitudes, behaviors, or social norms evolve over time. 4 participants related this to their grandparents or parents who were homophobic in the past. One of the participants mentioned, my grandparents were like super homophobic and hated other kinds of people. You know, it was the way things were, I guess, 100 years ago. Right now, we are like, kind, and beyond that. But who knows, in the another 100 years, we're going to be doing, the future generation's going to feel awful about. And hence, most participants preferred not to share their entire life and instead wanted to present selected moments. Yet participants were concerned with the amount of time required for curation for this 24 hours of video. There were open questions related to who would have the right to curate such videos, especially when children transition into adults, and how would they handle conflicts within family members with the curation process. Lastly, moving on to the implications, so interpreting our results in terms of the benefits of the design, addressing some of the tensions that were revealed to the results, and some opportunities for future work. So we saw families wanting 2 ends of a spectrum, the design's ability to capture a more accurate representation of one's life, but for the most part not to elicit those undesirable instances and time periods or like negative periods. But the challenge is that their emotions, fears, and understanding could change over time and across people, as we discussed in our results. So this raises the design question of like how one can balance the competing needs among different family members in the home. One way to approach this problem is to further investigate the types of information that are revealed through every artifact prior to seeing the video content. In retrospect, we used a very ambiguous level of activity level to provide them awareness of what was going on before seeing the videos. But one could consider additional levels of like granularity or other metadata such that people could take more informed decisions before seeing the actual video content. This also points to the trade-off between designing for ambiguity in order to increase anticipation versus the value of knowing specific information in the past about a moment before seeing it in the present. Talking about the social norms of objects around everyday objects. So typically when people place objects throughout their home as decor or for everyday use, they're meant to be naturally open to being used and like seen by others. But by embedding family memories into these familiar household objects, tensions were revealed regarding the social norms around such objects. The everydayness of the design, artifact, and its public accessibility raised questions around who had access to the content and when they had access to the content. So one way to approach this problem is to further explore how objects are placed in the home and used in the home, and how such interactions with the objects might shape the data access, such that the data in these objects might change based on social awareness of who is around and where they are located, or considering increasing progressive disclosure of digital content. For example, videos might be shown at a very blurry state until it might be okay to show them at a high fidelity. Overall, I think the importance of these ideas is that they build on the notion that design should be easily integrated within everyday routines of domestic life, and they should respect the social norms around everyday objects in the home. Lastly, talking about design to be passed down, finally a design revealed that the value the participants attributed in seeing their ancestors in somewhat raw form of life, but were uncomfortable exposing the social values and moralities over time. So this is the question of like, how could we create designs to be passed down to future generations while still protecting and safeguarding the generations? One way to approach this problem is to further explore the level of effort that is needed by the future generations to access the memories of their ancestors. This could be in terms of location, for that designs might only unlock the content if the actual coasters are brought to the exact city, neighborhood, or even the exact home, and then it may be brought back. Or second, in terms of time, a person has to wait until a certain age to get the same maturity level to understand what were things happening in the background, and then provide access to that content. In the end, I just want to reiterate my message to this talk that domestic video recording and playback technologies provide value for family members, but the design needs to respect the evolving social norms, relationships, and privacy concerns across times and generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Samarth. So we've got time for some questions. If you want to ask a question, come up, maybe line up here. We've probably got time for maybe 2 questions, depending on how long they are. Any questions? Okay, my question is really interesting, Samarth, from what you've seen. Do you see examples, particularly the stuff you got towards with the end there, around the kind of sort of whether someone should have to be in a particular state or a particular place to be able to access this? Like, is there a kind of that kind of thing? Have you seen that with other things? Like, are there any, I'm thinking, have you ever come across examples of sort of, I don't know, diaries that a family keeps, or like boxes that they will only open when a child reaches a certain birthday or something? Like, is that a thing that is a parallel to this?
I think that's somewhat true with like how parents like filter out stuff in the home. Like, you would only get access to like certain television channels when you're a certain age, or those kind of filters. And I think like the concern with like passing on the system, like it exposes the moralities. So maybe one of the ways of handling it was like waiting till a certain age where the person gains that maturity level to understand what were the things back. That is just one of the ways, but there might be multiple perspectives of looking at that. Cool, thanks.
Hello, Susanne Boll, University of Oldenburg. Thanks for that interesting work. I had a few questions on the relationship of the content and this physical, tangible display. So, if you had several cameras in the home, would you then say, maybe I missed that, have several of these time turners, like where close to the camera, like maybe one in the child's room because you want to turn back time in your kid's room versus in the living room?
So right now, time turner works in the way like it would fetch the data from the nearest camera. For example, if you're in a baby's room, it would show you the content for that particular room. But if you move it to a different room, it would show you the content for that particular room.
And in general, the question for me is, you are turning back, you're using it as a slider in time. Why it was for you so important to do it with captured video in the home, and why not moving back to the in time in the family's photo collection? So why was it inside the house, and why was it not also turning back time in sense of what I did when I visited grandparents at their place?
Yeah, that's one of the limitations. Like, this is sort of like a one home technology right now, and there were questions like even our participants raised like how could we access content with different homes or their parents or the grandparents' home. So that might be something in the future, like how can we connect multiple houses with such a system? That might be something which we might explore in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you.